Nobody likes to fail. It's an odd term. Nobody likes to fail. It's an interesting concept to define because it could be said that failure is a lack of success, or that failure is the opposite of success, but we can't really define failure without talking about success. And too often, failure and not succeeding is something that is filled with negative connotations and is almost taboo. And of course, nobody should aim to fail, but too often the real failure is in how we react to it. We beat ourselves up, we bemoan it, we kind of get stuck in our own misery instead of just moving on. Nobody can change the past, and sometimes this failure is caused by something we have no control over, and sometimes it's caused by our own actions and consequences. But in either of those cases, we can't change it. We can't go back and unfail. And the real failure is not getting back up, it's staying down when we could learn from it, we could grow from it, we could keep going, we could act differently in the future. And of course, we never try and fail. We never make decisions and actions thinking that it's going to lead to our failure. We never actively try and do it. It just happens. And at the time, we did what we thought was best, and we can't go back and change that. So we shouldn't beat ourselves over it. And that's not to say that we shouldn't contemplate our failures. Every failure, every mistake is an opportunity to learn. It's the very definition of trial and error. We would not know how to succeed if we had never failed. We need to contemplate our failures, ask ourselves what we would do differently, where a mistake happened, and how we can learn from it to avoid it in the future, applying that knowledge for future success. But we shouldn't waste time regretting it or being mad at ourselves. It's not a good use of time or energy. Often, failure presents a unique opportunity to grow, and too often, it's an opportunity that's ignored. Taking a step further, we can seek this opportunity more often, and we can even see it in others. The famous German statesman Otto von Bismarck once said that the wise man learns from the mistakes of others, and it's true. We can't we can learn from our mistakes, but we can also learn from the mistakes of others. Two sides of the same coin. It's impossible for success to exist without failure, both in the understanding of the concept and the presence in the real world. The key to getting through failure is rising up again. It's in our response to it. So we shouldn't waste time regretting it and wishing we could do differently. Instead, we should be grateful for the unique opportunity presented to us, an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to grow. Or at least that was a big part of my script for this video, a script that I worked on for quite a bit, and it all seemed so good, so happy-go-lucky, so positive until a few days ago. I've always had trouble with procrastinating things, but it's something that I've worked on a lot and gotten a lot better. But the other day, I failed to submit my English paper because I put it off for far too long. And so 50% of my grade is going to end up being a zero. And what that did is that it took me from pretty much assuring an A plus in every single class this semester to barely scraping by English, not failing it, getting a C in it, which is ridiculous because English is something that I had always done well in. And that sucked. That night, when I didn't reach the deadline to submit it in time, knowing that no late submissions would be accepted, I I was distraught. I was completely in shock. I started beating myself up because it had been completely my responsibility, this failure of mine. And all the stuff that I talked about in this script, all the stuff that I just mentioned, it all went out the window. It's so easy to talk about how failure is important and how we react to it is important and this and that. But when we fail that spectacularly, nobody can do that. Who can really just be like, oh, okay, and then move on? It's something that's not possible. It was horrible. I'll never forget that feeling. I think it's was probably my lowest point of the semester. The whole semester I'd been convinced that I was going to get a GPA of 4.3, and it all went down the drain with this compiling of bad decisions that I made. And my friends try to support me in many ways. Some of them just try to comfort me. Some of them told me that it would be okay, that we're taking 120 credit hours approximately through college. So 1C is around 0.002 of our whole grade. It doesn't really matter in the grand scale of things. But one of my friends, even that I had showed this script to, told me, "Bro, like you literally just talked about this the other day when you showed me your script. Like don't beat yourself up over it." But that's all I did. For these past few days, I've been talking to myself in a way that I would never allow somebody else to talk to me. I've been beating myself up and carrying these immense feelings of guilt and regret and really struggling with accepting and moving on from this failure. Bringing me back to my philosophy class, the topic of whether we had free will or not. If we had free will, then it was my choices that led to it happening, and so I should feel guilty about it. It was my fault. And if we don't have free will, then from the moment I was born, I was fated to mess it all up in the last minute, fall at the home stretch, trip as I was reaching the finish line, and just nothing seemed to help, and it still doesn't. And I've been telling myself that failure is important, that it's a mistake I'll learn from, that because of that mistake, I won't let it happen again. But I was still so incredibly disappointed in myself. Um, I remember I attended an event here at ASU where this person, I think her name is Sherry, from the NASA L Space program, came and just talked, or I guess she works here, so she just talked. It was a sort of like she was the speaker, and at the end we had to we could ask questions, and I remember that I wanted to ask a question about failure, and my hands were shaking, I was sweating. You know, public speaking is never easy. It's nerve-wracking, especially when you're about to hold up a mic and ask a question where everybody, all of a sudden, their eyes turn to you. But I try to remember what I learned in class about converting stress into confidence. And I try to remind myself, okay, well, my heart's beating faster. That means more blood is getting pumped to my my brain. I'm breathing better. There's the adrenaline. I can channel this into confidence, this and that. And I asked my question. I asked, well, I failed a lot through this first semester of college, you know, and everybody always says that failure is important, that, you know, learn from your mistakes, this and that. But nobody ever tells you how to actually do that. So I guess my question I'm asking is, how can we feel better? And she was very nice. She gave me a few pointers, such as, you know, analyze the situation, analyze what your mistake was, so that you can make sure not to happen again, make sure it doesn't happen again. Something that you know we all do. For example, when we get a math problem wrong, we look at where we got it wrong and why we got it wrong, and we work on that so that the next one we get it right. But I guess what I should have asked is, how do I not hate myself when I fail? Because maybe I learned how to grow from my failure, but I didn't learn how to forgive myself for it. If it was something that had happened because of a situation that was completely out of my control, I guess I'd be frustrated, but it would be easier because I wouldn't blame myself at all. But I failed completely because of my own actions. And nobody teaches you how to deal with that sort of stuff. Nobody teaches you how to deal with the immense feelings of hatred, remorse, guilt, and bitterness that come from failing so spectacularly at something. And they say that with every failure comes a seed that could have been used for an equal success, you know? If you failed at something, you could have succeeded on it. If I failed at getting a 4.3 GPA, That means I could have gotten a 4.3 GPA, and that by failing, I had to at least put myself out there. I failed because I'm in college, which is something that not everyone can say. I failed at getting a 4.3 because all my other classes are A pluses. Uh, and it's been said to me that people don't fail enough, that not failing means that you're never putting yourself out there in situations where you could fail. You're never going outside your comfort zone. And that is something that I know a lot about growth. I used to be really quiet as a kid. I always thought I was introverted. I used to have horrible, nerve-wracking social anxiety. I couldn't call up Domino's and order a pizza for myself. I had to have my mom or somebody else do it for me. I couldn't go up at Best Buy to ask somebody where the monitors were. I was always so afraid of judgment. And through my junior and senior years, I had this one friend, Daniel, and he was extremely extroverted. And I hung out with him a lot. And through him, I got put in a lot of situations that were way outside my comfort zone. And through being outside my comfort zone, I grew. And now I have pretty much almost completely rid myself of this social anxiety. And I failed a lot in social situations. And through that, I grew. But even though I know that this failure has silver linings somewhere and that I'll grow from it, nobody ever really teaches you how to deal with it. It's something that is so hard to get over. And I remember this English project, it was talking about body dysmorphia and how, bodybuilders, they're never happy with their bodies because they keep looking for a perfection that doesn't exist, keep climbing where there is no end in sight. And I guess I could have written the project about me and my perfectionism. And I just failed again right now. I kept talking for 10 minutes without realizing that my microphone had given out and no audio was being recorded. Um, I guess I could have written the project about my own perfectionism and how, nothing is ever good enough for me. When I was talking to one of my friends about this, they told me, Gus, you're like so hard on yourself. Would you be able to say you beat yourself up too much? Would you be able to say these words that you're telling me right now, to a younger you? And I wouldn't. There's so many times where the way we talk to ourselves is something that would be completely unacceptable if somebody else were talking to us in that way. But it sucked so much failing in this because it's something that I really wanted to do well in. And I guess it all felt like it was just all for nothing. Like it was something that I tried my best at and I still failed. And I guess you could say that if I had really tried my best, you know, I wouldn't have failed. But there's nothing I can do about it now. But this is a really hard part. Like, seriously, nobody, nobody, nobody out there teaches you how to deal with failure. People may teach you how to learn from it, but not how to get over it. Because learning from it, I think a lot of people know, Learning from it, I look at what I did wrong and I make sure it doesn't happen again. But getting over it, forgiving yourself, not being hard on yourself, not beating yourself up, nobody teaches you that. That's something that could be learned through failure. That's something that a lot of people never learn. And every time they fail, they react the same way. So my script that I wrote for this video originally wasn't all BS, to put it nicely. It's very true. The real failure lies in how we react to it. So I guess by being so harsh on myself, I'm failing again. But it's good that I failed. I think it was something that it's important and it's something that is really hard, but I think it's good. There's nothing good that comes from an easy life. I feel like if we are never met with challenge, then we never know how to rise over it. Somebody who leads an easy life, they're gonna crumble when an obstacle appears in front of them. But somebody who's gotten over them, gotten over a lot of obstacles, they'll know how to deal with the next one. I guess it could be considered training because failure is something that happens to everyone a lot, more so for some than for others, but it's important to fail. And I guess somewhere deep within me, I'm glad that I did because it gives me a new opportunity to grow and it makes me just a tiny bit stronger, even though it really, really sucks. It's hard. It's really hard, but it's okay. It's going to be okay. I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna take more classes. Life goes on, and with time, it'll get better. It'll get easier. And next time I fail, it's probably gonna suck really hard again, but I know that it'll be okay.